Introduction. The Battle of Cowpens happened during the American Revolutionary War in 1781 near Cowpens, South Carolina. It was a significant event in the American reconquest of South Carolina from the British. The battle was between U.S. forces under Brigadier General Daniel Morgan and British forces under Lieutenant Colonel Banastre Tarleton. Morgan's forces executed a double envelopment of Tarleton's forces, resulting in a devastating loss for the British. Morgan's forces had 2,000 troops while Tarleton's had 1,000. Morgan's forces suffered minimal casualties, while Tarleton's force was almost completely eliminated. This event, along with the Battle of Kings Mountain, led to Cornwallis pursuing the main Southern American army into North Carolina, which eventually led to the defeat of the British at the Siege of Yorktown in Virginia in October 1781. Background. In 1780, Continental Army Commander General George Washington chose Nathanael Greene to be commander of the Southern Department of the Continental Forces. At that time, the Carolinas had been the scene of a long string of disasters for the Continental Army, with many American soldiers being captured or killed by the British. In December of that year, Brigadier General Daniel Morgan reported for duty to Greene's headquarters at Charlotte, North Carolina. Greene decided that his weak army could not meet the British in a stand-up fight and made the unconventional decision to divide his army. He sent a detachment led by Morgan west of the Catawba River to raise morale and find supplies beyond the limited amounts available around Charlotte. Meanwhile, Lord Cornwallis was planning to return to North Carolina and conduct the invasion that he had postponed after the defeat at Kings Mountain. Cornwallis received incorrect intelligence claiming that Morgan was going to attack an important British fort of American loyalists at 96, in western South Carolina. Seeking to save the fort and defeat Morgan's command, Cornwallis ordered cavalry, dragoons, Lieutenant Colonel Banastre Tarleton to the west. Tarleton set out to drive Morgan across the Broad River, but Morgan decided to stand and fight rather than continue to retreat and risk being caught. Battle. Just before sunrise, Tarleton's troops emerged from the woods in front of the American position. Tarleton ordered his soldiers to attack the American skirmishers, but they fired back and shot 15 British dragoons. Tarleton then ordered an infantry charge without waiting to study the American deployment or allow the rest of his troops to catch up. The British attacked again and reached the militiamen, who poured 2 volleys into the enemy, targeting commanders. The British were confused by the attack and reorganized to continue advancing. Tarleton ordered one of his officers to charge with some dragoons into the defeated Americans. The American militiamen seemed to flee as planned after getting off their second volley, and the British believed they were on the run. However, the British then charged into the disciplined Maryland and Delaware regulars on the hill, and the 71st Highlanders were ordered to flank the American right. The Virginian militia misunderstood orders and began to withdraw, causing the British to charge forward, thinking the Americans were on the run. But the Virginians suddenly stopped their withdrawal and fired into the British, causing them to halt. The Continentals then mounted a bayonet charge, and Tarleton's force began to collapse. The American cavalry hit the British on their right flank and rear, and Pickens's militia charged out from behind the hill, completing a circle around the American position to hit the 71st Highlanders on the British left flank and rear. Caught in a double envelopment, many of the British surrendered. When Tarleton's right flank and center line collapsed, only a minority of the 71st Highlanders were putting up a fight. Tarleton realized how desperate his situation was and rode back to his sole remaining intact unit, the British Legion Cavalry, but they fled the field. Washington pursued Tarleton for 16 miles but gave up the chase when he came to the plantation of local planter Adam Goudilock near Thickety Creek. Tarleton was able to escape capture by forcing Goudilock to serve as a guide. Aftermath. At the Battle of Cowpens, Morgan's army took 712 prisoners, including 200 wounded, and inflicted significant casualties on the British, including the loss of Tarleton's brigade. Historian Lawrence E. Babbitts suggests that the casualties on the American side were higher than reported. The victory at Cowpens was a turning point in the war, demoralizing the British and encouraging the Americans to fight on. Cornwallis was forced to abandon his pacification efforts in South Carolina and pursue Greene's force into North Carolina. After a long chase, Cornwallis met Greene at the Battle of Guilford Courthouse and won a Pyrrhic victory, weakening his army and leading him to withdraw to Yorktown. The Battle of Yorktown ultimately led to the British giving up their efforts to defeat the Americans.